Okay, so yep, it's streaming on YouTube now. All right, so that just took a few minutes. Sorry about that. So again, here's the up on the screen is the code. If you want to join the auto transcription translation, you can do that. Or if you have trouble with GoToWebinar, you can switch over to the YouTube live stream. If you are on YouTube and you want to submit questions, you do need to join the GoToWebinar stream. That's where questions can be submitted. Hello from France, Fabian. It's always great to see people from all over the world joining on today on these sessions. So today's session is day 5 plus, Intro to Exercism. We're getting started with Exercism. Exercism is a free site that is set up to have mentored coding exercises. And I've touched on this previously, but today I'm going to focus on walking through some use cases with Exercism, getting you started with Exercism so that you can use this as a way to apply some of the basics you've learned and gain some more experience. One thing that's great about Exercism is they have these well-defined exercises that you complete, and then you can submit those to a mentor, and the mentor will provide you feedback. Now, originally when I was setting up the summer camp, I was wanting to have a similar sort of format for the main part of the summer camp, but because of the number of people we had signed up, that didn't work out. So we've partnered with Exercism to give everybody a chance to go do that on here. So exercism.io is the website. Just go here and click sign up. And sign up, or you can use, if you have a GitHub account, just use your GitHub account to sign up. I've already signed up, so I'm going to go ahead and log in, and I will log in with my GitHub account. Once you've logged in or signed up, you'll be presented with a selection of language tracks. You'll have tracks you've already joined up at the top, and then you can scroll down and find a track you would like to join. So I'm going to join the Delphi Pascal track. And when you click join, it will ask you if you want to go into mentored mode or practice mode. The difference between the two, practice mode, you still get access to all the exercises, but mentored mode lays the exercises out, which you can kind of see in the background here in a logical order, but one builds on top of the other. And you can also submit your work to a mentor for feedback, which is one of the really fantastic features of Exercism. So I'm going to choose mentored mode. Now on the side here, down if you scroll down, there's some guides. We already have Delphi installed. I'll explain the rest. There's about how to use the Exercism user interface as we go along, but we have to set up the Exercism command line interface. So if we go here to Windows, which is what I'm running right now, I will use the command line interface using the installer application. I just go to the GitHub page for it and download the command line installer. And I've already run it once on this machine, but I'll go ahead and run it again here. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it the default path. This is the location that Exercism will, all the Exercism exercises will be placed. The installer is written with Delphi because it's fantastic for applications like this. And we hit finish. And so we're done. We've now installed the command line interface. Yes, we installed it. So I'm going to now configure the command line interface. And to do that, I have to give it my token here. And that token is mine specifically. So you will have a different token. And right there. So now it's connected to my command line client, but now I'm going to reset my token since I just shared it with everybody here, which you can do via the, I think it's the settings. Yeah, right here. So I'm just going to pause my screen while I reset my token. And then use the new token to reconnect again. Okay, so let me resume my screen. So now I'm in the Delphi Pascal track. So, and I've got the command line interface set up and associated with my account. So Keenan just joined. I'm going through how you can use Exercism to get some hands-on experience with the programming language of your choice. They offer lots of language tracks. You can change between practice mode and presenter mode at some time later. So I'll show you how you can do that as well. So if you're like really interested in C++, C, Delphi, or they also have Python down here, which I will join the Python one again real quick so everybody can see the process here. Click on the language you want, hit join Python track. You can choose between mentored and practice mode. You can change in the future if at some point later you're like feeling like you want to just go to practice mode around, you can do that. I'll join this one in practice mode so you can see the difference. So in practice mode, I still have access to all the exercises, but I can jump to any exercise I want to in any order. And if at a later point I decide I want to switch to mentored mode, I can come down here and say switch to mentored mode. And it explains what mentored mode means. I say switch to mentored mode, and now I'm in mentored mode. Okay, just checking the question log here. Looks like we're doing all right. So let me go back. I'm going to start with Delphi, and we'll do the hello world example. So they have a step-by-step instructions that walk you through quickly getting started, which includes installing the command line, which we already did. Actually, let me click here. Were you able to install it? Yes, I was. I don't want to configure it again. Okay, so we're good to go at that point. So now to install the Hello World exercise, right here it has a download button. So I can click copy. And if I go to the terminal window where I have Exercism installed, and I'm in PowerShell, which you have to give it an explicit path instead of local path, I have to do the / there. And I'm downloading Exercise Hello World from the track Delphi. So it's downloaded that now. And if I go into Delphi, oh, it's in my users folder. Share the YouTube URL again. Yes, I can share the YouTube URL again. It is hello from Chile to Christian Gomez. Christian Gomez. So I'm in the folder now where is extracted the Delphi Hello World. And I noticed my webcam makes me look a little orange today. I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure if that's just my monitor or what, but I assure you I am not ill, at least not as far as I know. So the coloration is an aberration of my webcam. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into this in the, oops, that's the YouTube URL. So there's a getting started guide, a README, the project file, and the tests. Not sure what will open that. So these are markdown files. I don't know if I have a markdown viewer installed. Oh, it's going to use Visual Studio Code. Okay. So this goes, the README explains the objectives for this project. Isn't there a preview? There we go. That's much better. So we're going to write a function that returns a string hello world. We run the test suite to make sure it succeeds, and then we submit our solution and check it at the website. So let's do that. If we go to the folder where we have hello world, I'm going to open the project file. So at this point, I'm going to point out a couple things about the project files in Delphi. So there's actually two different files that make up a project file. Exercism only gives you this one by default, which is the DPR file. But then when you open it in Delphi, it will make the dproj to go with it, which is this file here. So that both those together contain the information that explain the project in general. This right here, we're viewing the DPR file, which is the project file, and this is the main entry point into your application. So this is the code that first runs, which in here is let me see, look at this. So this is just setting up the test suite and stuff like that for Exercism. The code that we're going to write is going to go in this file here, and we see it's already got the code in place for us. So this is the simple, easy one to get started. And this one here, hello world tests, is the tests that are going to run against the code we created. So I'm going to modify this. So make hello summer camp. And I will run it. And when we run it, it's running the test suite. So the test suite is using DUnitX, which is a unit testing framework that comes with Delphi that you use for unit testing. So the idea behind unit testing is it gives you the ability, or it's a concept, it's a best practice, I guess you could say, of testing all of your code, all your functions to make sure they work appropriately so that you can prove that it meets the specification. So you can think of the test as the requirements of the specification for your project, and then the code you write is coded against those tests to have the test pass. So in this case, we're not passing the tests because the test is expecting hello world, hello comma world, and we said hello summer camp. So we're going to fix our implementation here to say hello comma world. And we run this. And so you can also come in here and look if you want to at the tests themselves to see what's expected. So right here, expected, that's what it's actually expecting. And we hit run. And it failed because I still had it open. So I close that and run it again. And now we passed it. So I see a couple people came in just late. We are showing you how to use Exercism to get hands-on experience in writing projects. So I've completed the hello world one. So I'll hit enter to quit. And if we go back to the website, we've solved it now. So now we need to submit our solution. So we just say Exercism submit, path the file, and the path to all the files we want to submit. I'm not sure if Exercism is on my path. It is on the path. Okay, great. So the file I modified, let me save it to disk, is hello-world.pass is the only one I modified. So I think that's the only one I have to submit. Let's find out. So I say Exercism, is it dash submit? Exercism submit, and then the path to all the files. Exercism submit and I get the tab key to autocomplete, and then I tell it I don't pass. So I'm just going to submit that one. I think that's the only one I have to submit, but we'll find out here in just a second. So my solution has been submitted, and it gives me a URL for where the source file has been submitted. And at that point, I'm done, I think. Okay. Let me copy that to the clipboard. And open it up on the website here on Exercism. And so here's my solution I submitted. And I can say, okay, since I'm in practice mode, I thought I was in mentored mode. Okay, yeah, this one doesn't have mentored. So usually you'd submit it to your mentor for feedback, and they would they'll get an email and they'll email back to you later with some feedback for your solution. So in this case, because it's Hello World, there is no feedback necessary. So I hit continue, I'm done. I'm not going to bother publishing it just because it is super simple. So I'm going to go on to the next one, Twofer in Delphi, and I'll go through the process again. So if you're just joining late, which I see a couple people are and they're confused, if you go to the Exercism website and you want to sign up, I'm already signed up and logged in, select the track you want. I'm showing Delphi track right now, and choose mentored as your option so that you can get feedback. If you want to switch between mentored and practice mode, you can just fine at any point, no problem. So I'm in mentored mode, and in mentored mode, there's the next exercise. So the next exercise is, all right, let's go back to there, and I'm going to go to Twofer. So this one is given a name, return a string with the message one for X, one for me, where X is the given name. However, if the name is missing, return one for you, one for me. All right, pretty simple. So we'll go ahead and start this one here. I'm going to hit copy to download this one, and I will paste it in my command window here. So it's downloaded, and I can go into the folder to. If you joined late, you can follow the instructions on the website for how to install the command line interface for Exercism. It's right here on each page. There is the directory with the files in it. And I will go ahead and open in Explorer the project file. And I am running Windows 11 just because I like to make things hard on myself. So running Windows 11 beta on ARM, so things are a little bit weird sometimes. That's where that comes from. So I'm going to close the other project. Now, I've noticed that frequently the project file already includes the, if you notice, it says utwofer.pass here, but utwofer.pass is not in the folder. If I click on it, I'm going to get an error message. That's because that's the file we need to create. So I usually come in here and remove from project. Yes, and then I will make a new project or new file. Go right click, new unit, and save this one as utwofer.pass. So we have utwofer test.pass. That's not what we want. We want the solution, which is the same name without tests. And that's a pretty common convention you'll see is that people make a test file for each unit file to match them up. So we have utwofer. And if we go into the folder here, we see the README, which explains what we need to do, which we kind of already read on the website. So if we look in the tests, we can see that it's calling the method Twofer. So we're going to go back to utwofer and we'll make a procedure called Twofer, or function. Function Twofer, and I think it's passing a name. It is. So passing a name, just do it simply name string and returning a string. So what we've decided, we have a function called Twofer, and it takes a name as an argument or a parameter. And so the name is the input we're receiving from the test, and then we give back a result that is also a string. A string is a series of characters that we use to provide the results we want. So in Delphi, you have your unit, you have an interface, which is what defines what you're exposing publicly, and then your implementation is how you implement that, what we've exposed. So at this point, I have a test that will run, but it will fail every time. So let me go ahead and run this here. Okay, so it's written so that it can be called without a name parameter. And so the way you do that in Delphi is I think you put an equal sign here and say U. And I may have the syntax wrong. Let's see. I don't. So that's something I love about compilers, is that you can guess at the syntax and see if you got it right. All right, so what does it say? It says we had one test that failed. The first test failed, and once it failed the first test, it quit running tests. And that's because we're not returning anything. So what's it expecting on the first one? The first one's expecting on the first test, no name given, is expecting to get back one for you, one for me. So I'm going to cheat and just copy this here and say result equals, and we're just going to return that back. So we run it, and now the first test passed, and the other tests ignored. Why are they ignored? Let's go look. Oh, it's ignore. So we comment out the ignore statement to run the test. That's why it was ignoring them. So let's go ahead and run these two tests as well. Yes, Exercism is a great introduction to test-driven development, which is a lot of people really are big advocates of doing all your coding this way, is in creating a test, and the test defines the specification of what you should do, and then you write the code that expect to meet to satisfy those tests. So it's saying the two tests failed. That's because we're always returning one for you, one for me, when it's expecting one for Alice, one for me, one for Bob, one for me, because those are the names that are passed in here. So we're going to modify our here to say, now we could do two things. We could say, we could do an if statement. If name doesn't equal you, we could do something differently. Or because we've written this in such a way that if no name is provided, then you is provided automatically as the default, then we can just come in here and say, I'm going to use oops. There is a lot of ways you could do this. One way is to use the format command, but I'm just going to use the simple string concatenation and say name. So now one for name, one for me. So now I'll run this, and we passed all three tests. Oops, I'm going to go into here, and we'll submit my result. So if I do a directory now, here is the u2for.pass that I just created. So I'm going to say Exercism u2for.pass, or I gotta say submit. And I can grab this URL here. And come on here, go to that page. And I didn't hit save. So this is, I almost always turn this feature on, and I forgot to do it this time. So I will show you this because it is a very important one. Yeah, right here. So save file when compile or running. This has saved me so many times because if something so by if you don't do this, then you have to manually save your file if you want to actually have the file saved. It also has this periodic backup, which is really useful, and I'm turning that one down to like every 5 minutes or something like that. So every 5 minutes, it's going to save a backup copy of the files I've edited in the background, so that if something happens, there's a crash, power failure, etc. When I open it back up, I'll say, "Oh, we found a backup copy of your files." Let you restore those. But then I also like to save files when compiling or running. That way, every time you compile or run, it saves the file. But it's a good idea to also just save early and save often manually. The save desktop when closing, what that does is if you rearrange the windows, the panels in the IDE, it'll save that layout so that next time you reopen it, it uses that layout. And reopen last project when starting Ride Studio will just pick up again where you left off. So I'm just going to leave it like this. You can also do different layouts for different purposes. Like for example, when you can have a certain layout for when you first open IDE, a certain layout for when you switch to debugging mode and stuff like that. But we're not going to bother with any of that right now. And I will save. I've worked with a few people that always save twice. It's like whenever they do something, they save and then save again. And used to be way back in the day, the way disk caching worked, it wasn't always reliable on the first save if things failed immediately. So there was a version of DOS that you could save a file, and if your program, if your system locked up, like immediately after that, that file might still be in memory and not written to diskette, and then you'd lose your changes. Let's see. Hello from Bangladesh and Puerto Rico. Is there a social media group for the Summer Camp 2021? There is not right now. So I'm actually working on setting up a Discord server, and I will be sending out details of that in the near future, hopefully, to everybody on here so that you can get on and collaborate there as well. There is a couple of community sites. Actually, let me just point these out. These are really useful to know about. If you go to blogs.embarcadero.com, I think it's /community. Yes, /community. These are some of the community sites around the web related to Delphi or C++ Builder. And Delphi Praxis is one of the most popular ones. Then this one on Facebook, if you're on Facebook, is a great one as well. If you're looking for a community to join, one of these two here for Delphi is a great place to go, and you can find lots of help. There's also Stack Overflow. Stack Overflow does have very specific rules about how you ask questions and what kind of questions you can ask. If you comply with those rules, you can get good results, but you can also search there and see if other people have asked your questions too. Pakistan, Afghanistan, wow, people all over the place. So Bruce is saying, I set project desktop to save automatically, but I prefer to control when I save my own files. Yeah, if you're good at remembering to save your own files and you're not likely to have your system lock up for some expected reason, that's fine. Actually, I frequently leave this off when I'm doing presentations, because otherwise, every time I make a new demo application, it saves it to disk, and then I have project 1, project 2, project 3, and then pretty soon I have 100 projects in my directory because it just keeps saving all those. So when you go to run it, if like say make new project and then hit run, it's like, oh, let's save it. You're like, I don't want to save it. I'm just doing a quick demo, proof of concept, and auto save saves automatically. So I can see there's pros and cons to both. All right, so let me try this again and submit that again. And we'll go to look at the solution on the website. There we go. So now it has a solution. So at this point, a mentor will check out my work and leave a comment here on the solution soon. So they will get an email. They're pretty good about that. And I'm actually going to be encouraging some of the MVPs and people that signed up to mentor for summer camp to sign up as mentors on here, so that there's plenty of people to help out in answering questions about these things. Mentoring median wait time is about 4 hours. That's great. So at this point, I can go try another one. I can leave a comment if I'm like, let's say my solution is incomplete. I can say, I couldn't figure, like, you can leave a comment here that says, I figured out the first test, but was C on the seventh one. What do you suggest? And that would be a message that you could be sent to your mentor. So you hit the comment here. In this case, I'm going to just say, I've got it, I'm good. I don't need any additional feedback. All right. So now I can go on to the next project. So I'm going to switch. Yes, so Bruce says auto backup is in case the IDE crashes. Come to think of it, I'm not sure when the last time the IDE crashed and I lost work. Yeah, so the auto backup feature that was there, it saves you in case something does fail. So technically, I guess if you're using auto backup, you don't need it. Although, I don't know, computers never behave 100% the way you expect them to. Technically, they always do what you tell them to do, but the reality, the real world is there is so many variables and so many other programs running and so many, cosmic rays that could impact your memory and flip a single bit that you never know what's going to happen. So I've done the solution. Let's switch over to Python, and we'll do a solution in Python now. Let me just, oh, someone's already here commenting for me. Great, thank you. Oh, Ian's there. Fantastic. All right, so let's go over into Python. So I'm going to do Python Hello World, and actually I got to switch computers here for this. Hold on one second. Keep switching screens on me. There we go. So, let me. I need to log in. Yes, need a password. I'm using a password manager, and that means I wasn't logged in, so I had to go log into the password manager, get the password, sign in, and then use two-factor authentication because I don't know that I'd say I'm paranoid, but I like to make sure I am careful about my online accounts, and I definitely recommend everybody uses a password manager and two-factor authentication. Okay, so now I am logged in to my account and I'll do Python. So Felix is asking if Lazarus is compatible. Technically, Lazarus probably is compatible for the level of code you'll be doing on Exercism. You could be using Lazarus. It is so they are switching to a new site. Up at the top it says Exercism version 3 is launching September 1st. So they'll be switching to a new site, and it'll actually give you the ability to write your code in the browser, and it will compile on the back end and give you feedback, the test feedback automatically. And that will be using Delphi on the back end to compile it. But usually you'll probably be fine. Lazarus is an open source clone of Delphi. It doesn't have all the same functionality. It has actually has some functionality of its own that's new, but it should be fine. Anyway, so the new Exercism is coming soon, September 1st. You can find out more about it if you want to. I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to be a neat new expansion on that. So let's go into Python, and let's do Python real quick. I don't think I have the command line. So I will do the command line again, install on Windows. And walk through that here in case somebody joined late. I love that it's built with Delphi. Yes, so I haven't installed on this one yet. So it's going to create the Exercism installation. Hit finish. And then we have to configure it. And again, this time I'm going to pause so I don't broadcast my token. And it's going to say, let's configure your command line interface. And at this point, it will give you a command to run with your token in it. That's your private token, unique to you. And if you do accidentally share it on a live stream, you have to reset it. So that's why I'm not sharing it again. Because I already said it once. And now we will. So I've completed. Now we'll go back to my dashboard. And let's do Python. So the new version 3 that's coming on September 1st, you will no longer have to do the command line. Oh, it hasn't actually checked anything out yet, so it hasn't created that folder. So let's do the Python hello world. So I'm going to come in here, copy this command here, and jump out here, run that. It will then go out and grab it and put it in that folder there. And so copy that to the clipboard, go over here. So let's go to that folder in here. And we see here the files. I don't have anything that's going to open that in here. That's okay. We don't need to do that. So I'm going to open this with PyScripter, which I don't know why it's not associated with that automatically. Unless I installed PyScripter. Nope, there it is. Okay. So I've opened the test and the, oh, there it is right there. So this is the test. It's testing to see that when it calls hello, that it returns hello world. So if you come in here, here's hello. It's not doing anything. So I'm going to, is it results? No. Come on, brain, second. Bruce says, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean somebody's out to get you. It's returned, okay. It is crazy how often I end up looking up syntaxes, especially because I move between languages. And if you have done something for a while that you're not familiar with, if you're switching from one language to another and you're using a language you haven't used, well, in this case, what, 2 days ago or yesterday? Yesterday. Wow, it's been a long week. So I'm just going to say return hello so we can see it fail. I'm going to run the test. There we go. So I ran the test. The test said it was expecting hello world and it got hello. So now we'll go in here, fix it. So we'll say hello, comma, world, exclamation mark. Go back in here, we'll run it. And my test passed. Yay. So that's the simple one, designed to be easy. And now we will submit our solution. Let's see. And Exercism hello world.py. Oh, I have to say submit. So that's been submitted, and come out here, go to my solution I just submitted. I don't know why it keeps bringing up news. I don't necessarily want news on there. So there we go. Hello world. It says normally you would get a mentor's feedback, but in this case, because it is a simple one, we're not going to get feedback. That's fine. Say complete, continue. Not going to publish my solution because, again, it's just too easy. And we'll go on to Twofer, which we just did on the Delphi side. So there's real quick how to do it in Python as well. And any questions so far? It looks like there's Ian was helping out with a few of the questions. It looks like we're doing good. I'm going to go back and do another one in Delphi now. Let's do. Did I not? Okay, so it is submitted to a mentor to approve. So the mentor has to approve it. Yes, so Exercism is free. It's completely free and open source. That's one of the reasons we're sponsoring or working with them, is because they have it's free. Let's see if I can. Okay, it always takes me to the my tracks once I'm logged in, but I can go here to FAQ, and I don't see where it says it's free, but it is free. About Exercism. So they're a nonprofit organization. They got a few sponsors behind them that are helping them out, and mostly a lot of volunteers. So I would, if you're on this, either go here and do some exercises or go and volunteer as a mentor, right? If you're like, hey, I don't need to do those exercises, great, volunteer as a mentor, because I've found through experience that trying to teach somebody something or explain something to somebody is the best way to make sure you have learned it really well and are understand it. And so that's just a great way to help the community, help others by mentoring, and also improve your understanding. So let's go to the next one. I can't go to the next one yet. Huh. I would have thought it would let me go to the next one. All right, I want to switch to practice mode. And let's do leap. So given a year, report if it is a leap year or not. On every year that is divisible by 4, it's a leap year, except year that is evenly divisible by 100, unless the year is also divisible by 400. All right, that sounds easy enough. So I'm going to download this one. So open up the Leap project. And again, it has this file in here, but I'm going to remove it because it's not actually there. And add. Now, the great thing is this is open source, so I can actually go out to the Exercism GitHub repository and find the Delphi ones and maybe change those templates so they don't have the empty file being referenced in there. So we'll just call this uleap.pass. And we will look at the leap tests to see that it is, so I'm gonna go ahead and uncomment to ignore on all of these. So control and the /key, /key, the one on the question mark next to the shift key is lets you comment out a line automatically. I used to do tech support years ago, and so I had to be able to tell people, describe which one's the /, which one's the /. People get confused about that. So in this case, it's looking for a class called tYear with a method called isLeap. So that's one way of implementing it. So we'll do that. We're going to go in here and we're going to say type tYear equals class. And it has a isLeap. It takes year, which is an integer, and returns a Boolean. And then we use Control-Shift-C, which is class completion, and that will then go down and put the implementation so it matches up, lines everything up for me. So, oops, wrong one. I want to go look at the tests. So tYear, tYear, and this is using uleap. So now this should all compile now, but my test should fail. Compiles. It says I have a warning that the return value is not defined. So it's undefined. So there we go. It's an end value. I don't know what value it is. Probably false. But as we can see, we passed 4 tests just out of sheer luck. It's 50% chance, right? And failed 2 tests. So we haven't actually written any code here. So I'm going to go in and let's make some code. So we're going to say, if we look at the specification again for this one, if it's divisible by 4, unless it's divisible by 100, unless every year, okay, a leap year is every year that's divisible by 4, except every year that's divisible by 100, unless that year is divisible by 400. Okay, so we'll say if year mod 4 equals 0, so that says if we divide by 4, if the remainder is 0, mod is the modulus operator, then we will say, and I'm going to do a begin here just because I think it makes it a little more clear. If year mod 100 equals 0, then if year mod 400 equals 0, I think this is going to work. I have to think this through. Okay, if, then we say true, or true in that case, and otherwise we would say oops. Else result equals false. And then outside this one, we would say else, so this is else on the 100. is true. True. And here we would say else result false. All right, let's run that test. Oh, wow. Surprised that worked on the first time. So there we go. That's one way of doing it, by doing nested if then else statements. You could also do this all in one line if you wanted to, is by having the result based on, instead of saying true or false, you can just say result equals like this. Result equals year mod 400 equals 0, because that is returns true. So you could put it all together. Honestly, I think this is easier to read and easier to debug. I frequently feel like I want to roll things up into one nice simple line, but Bruce is saying I should refactor it. I could refactor it. All right, let's try and refactor it. So let's say result equals, see if I can do this all in one line. Well, before I do that, I'm going to remove the begin end blocks because I don't need those. And that'll simplify it a little bit. Oops, wrong arrow key. Oops, this needs to be else. That key, because I'm on a Mac in a virtual machine, I don't want the in there, I want the else there. And you never have a semicolon before an else, which is a little weird, but that's the way it works. Cool. So see, that's one of the beauties of having unit tests, is you can go through and make changes to your code and make sure it still works the way you expect it to. All right, now let's see if I can do this all in one line. Result equals year mod 400 equals 0 and not or all right, so let me comment this out here and run this. Oh my goodness, it worked. You know, I have been programming since I was in grade school, and I cannot tell you how often just having a program, just seeing a program run, right? So I have this thought in my mind and I express it in program and run it and it works. Even if it doesn't work right, just seeing something that came out of my mind through the compiler run on the screen, especially like on mobile phone or something like that, is just tickled me every time. But to see it actually work like I expected it to is still awesome. All right, so the question here, isn't using if a lot or a lot not efficient? Yes, so there is, so it's kind of beyond the scope of this, but you can do this. I'm going to debug this. And you can come in here and say view, debug window, disassembly. And it's going to let you see the assembly code, the machine code that is generated as a result of the code you wrote. Now, so this is using this method here. There is some things. So there's two a few things that can impact performance. Not every instructions, because this is a CISC complex instruction set CPU, is the same. Some instructions are more expensive, take more time than other instructions, but generally you look at the number of instructions. If you have more instructions, then that could indicate it's a slower method. The cool thing is, because Delphi is native compiled across all the platforms, if I was writing this as a multi-platform application, I could come in and disassemble this and see the disassembly for each CPU. So right now we're looking at 32-bit x86 assembly. If I was to recompile it for Android, then I could look at the 64-bit ARM disassembly. But you come here and look at this. Jumps tend to be a little expensive. So there's a few things you can look at this and know whether or not it's the most efficient. Now, that being said, 99% of the time, if the code works effectively, is more important than it is the most efficient code possible. So usually your best bet is to write code that is easy to understand, easy to test, and easier to maintain. Right? That should be your first goal. It should meet the requirements. It should be easy to see what it's doing so that it's easy to maintain and easy to test. Then later on, if you're like, oh my goodness, this part here is slow because it's being hit 1,000 times and I ran some code coverage tests and stuff like that, so I need to improve the efficiency of this bit of code here, that's when you come in and make changes to make it more efficient. Generally, you don't need to or shouldn't want to make the most efficient code possible, but it is a good idea to be aware of efficiencies, inefficiencies, and if it's the same amount of effort, write the more efficient code to begin with. But that is well beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. But because Mason brought it up, I just thought I would touch on that really quick. So there we go. I've done done this one. So let's go ahead and submit it. uleap.pass. Now, if my result, if I generate multiple files, then I would list each one. So I'd say uleap2.pass or whatever, but I didn't. So I just have the one. Submit. And now I can come here. Copy that to the clipboard. And oops, where am I at? There's where I'm at. And here's my solution. Okay, I switched to practice mode, so I can't request mentor feedback, but I can submit my solution and also view other completed solution. So let's just do that, and I'll submit my solution. Well done. Oh, sure, I'll publish it. Why not? I should have left a comment on it. So here's other completed solutions submitted by other people, so you can come and look at them. So the great thing here is, let's say, for example, I was to submit a solution and it was like, I don't know if this is the best solution, or I'm having some trouble. I can come in and look at somebody else's solution and see what they did and decide, okay, so he went with the all-in-one line like I did as well. Although he used, so he had a couple things in there. I nested it differently so I didn't have to have as many lines in mine. And he broke his on multiple lines. So I just have the 3 checks, 1, 2, 3, but then I did the parentheses on here so I didn't have to do that the same. Anyway, there we go. Let's see if I refresh this. It should say, yep, mine's published now. I've disabled comments. I can enable comments here. There we go. People now can leave comments on my solution. Okay. Let's see. So Mason is saying asking about if statements. So there is there are people that are say you should avoid if statements because it represents a branch in your code, and there's two different things. You know, this code may or may not execute versus this code. So there is a programming paradigm where you don't have any if statements at all. There are pros and cons on that, I suppose. It's worth looking into if you want to. I don't adhere to that, but I do understand the idea in that when you have if statements and nested if statements and stuff like that. So let me go back to my code here. This code here, before I commented it out, if this line here was incorrect, if I didn't have appropriate tests that tested every scenario and went down every path of that if statement, then I don't know that. Also, well, here, let me do this. And debug now. Oops, I didn't run it with debug mode. Let's run debug mode. And I can go view, debug window, CPU window, disassembly. And so now there's more code here potentially, but each one's got different lines assigned to it. So you come and look at this and see, you know, if this is more code, if it's less code, which instructions are being executed, whether or not those instructions are as efficient or not. So you are raising a valid point, Mason, but it's worth looking into. I would not say for a beginner avoid if statements, but it is definitely something to look into learning more about. So back up. If you're just starting out learning programming, there's a lot to learn about the technical how to do things, but there's also a kind of a higher level thing to learn about the best way to do things. And that both of those are actually continuously evolving because programming languages continue to advance, more features, new languages, so on and so forth, and best practices continue to evolve as well. There is a few primary books. Clean Code is a great one. Code Complete, Pragmatic Programmer are great books. I'll put a list up here of those. Code Complete, Pragmatic Programmer, and Clean Code. These are three of they're frequently referenced as being good best collections of best practices. Code Complete by Steve McConnell, the Pragmatic Programmer, which just came out with a brand new edition a couple of years ago. So originally published in 1999, there's a new edition. I don't know if it links to the new edition in here. There's a brand new edition, like 25th anniversary edition or something like that, just came out. And Clean Code. So Uncle Bob has a series. Uncle Bob's Robert C. Martin is the guy that wrote that, and he has a website, cleancoders.com, where you can go and watch a series of instructional videos. They're pretty interesting because they're not like this kind of video. They're not usually showing a lot of IDEs or code, but instead are dressed up in different costumes as different characters talking about these concepts, which I think is good because it's a way of engaging a different part of your brain. Now, some people absolutely have to have that kind of content to learn things. Other people learn great in this kind of content. Myself, I learn the best just jumping in with both feet and thrashing about until things work. So whatever works best for you, there's lots of different ways to learn. Does a simple code coverage feature come with Delphi CE when using unit tests or even dynamic testing? So it does come with unit testing. I don't think there's there is. I'm not sure if that comes with Community Edition or not. There is CodeSite, No, that's not a code coverage thing. I'm not sure the answer to that offhand. Sorry, I'd have to look and see. You could also use switch or case statements, which is a different syntax of accomplishing pretty much the same thing. Behind the scenes, is it better or not? It depends. And that's one thing that's really a big takeaway. Also, is there is, in my experience, rarely been one answer that this is the best way always to do something. There are a lot of things that you should never do. There are a number of things that you should avoid. Then there are some things that are usually the right way to do things, but rarely is there a this is always the best way to do things. So I always say write your code so that it's easy to understand and easy to test and gets the job done. And then later you can make the decisions about how to optimize that, how to improve its efficiency, which frequently results in code that maybe is easier, harder to maintain or harder to read sometimes. Not always. That's not always the case, but you can definitely, you should start out trying to solve it in a way that's easy to maintain, because we talked about the first day, you read code more often than you write code, so you should be writing it with the mindset that it's easy to read by somebody else in the future. That also means that when you're writing it, you have the best understanding about what's going on. And so you do not want to write to your peak cleverness. If you're writing to your peak cleverness, then when you're looking at the code tomorrow, you will not be as clever as you are now, and you will be confused. So write code that's easy to understand by somebody else, even yourself, if you when you're looking at it tomorrow, because you will not remember everything. Matt Mason says, as engineers say, if it works, it works. Yes, generally true. If as long as it's working, it's working. There are always ways you can improve things. That's kind of the idea behind refactoring, is a way to make the code easier to read, easier to maintain, not necessarily trying to improve efficiency. Optimizing it for performance is not refactoring. Okay. Enough on that. Let me go back on here. There we go. So if we look through these, actually, I'm just going to kind of scroll through and talk about some of these different ones. We see we have easy ones, a lot of easy ones, and then we have some medium ones, some other easy ones mixed in here as well. And I think there is one, yeah, there's a couple hard ones down here as well. So if you are a advanced developer and you want to come out and try your hand at one of these hard ones, that is an option as well. Okay, so you get a letter and you draw out this diamond following the rules that they define here. Interesting. You know, looking at this, it doesn't look like it would be that difficult to do, but I do know from experience that it, excuse me, just one second. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So I've been running the translation on my phone, and the Microsoft translation seems to work much better. It doesn't time out or close if you're running it from your phone. So that's good to know. For some reason, if you're running it in the browser, it just stops, even if you tell it not to. Oh, they have a getter group on for Delphi Pascal for Exercism. I didn't see that. That's cool. So if you weren't looking for a community to go out and join to discuss these problems, that's a great option there as well. So also, so if you are an advanced programmer like Bruce, I see you're on here. You can come out here to Exercism, and they have all their exercises. Exercises. Is it definitions? All right, they do have a lot more definitions of problems than are listed here. So Delphi has 76 different exercises. If you come out to the Exercism repository and browse through it, oh, right here, problem specifications. This is what I was looking for. So these are all the problem specifications they have. So you see there's a lot of these here. So if you are like a lot more skilled or have, you want to, you can come out here and implement these problem specifications. So basically you're going to make the tests for one of these problem specifications, and then you can submit it to Exercism, and then it will show up here in the track. If we scroll down to the bottom, let's see, there's two maintainers, Ryan Potts. Actually, I think he's the main one. He's done, as far as he's the one that wrote the installer, and he made all the Delphi exercises, implement all the Delphi exercises. He's one of the mentors as well on here. So I'll be signing up as a mentor and encouraging others that are wanting to help people that signed up as mentor for this group, or Embarcadero MVPs to sign up as mentors as well, as a way to help people that are learning. Yeah, so you can come out here, like I was saying, and implement one of these other ones. So OCR numbers is not on the Delphi list here, so you can come out here and implement OCR numbers. There is a description of what it looks like, and the canonical data that defines it, and you're just going to come in and create the tests for it so that it can be available for Delphi. And they're launching, like I said, the new one here on September 1st. So they'll be offline for, I think they said, 2 weeks. So at the end of September. So there may be offline for a while for that. Just to be aware of that there will be some downtime. Okay, Bruce says he doesn't say because there's an advanced programmer, but a special programmer. Yeah, I would agree with that, Bruce. But honestly, just come here and find where you're comfortable, what you can do. The submitting things is not necessarily that advanced. I don't consider myself an advanced programmer, but I think I could definitely do the submitting new exercises from the problem specifications. I will just go look at the other tracks here so you can see some of the other things in the other tracks. So we see in C there's 71 exercises, C++ has 55 exercises, Delphi has 76 exercises, Python has 117 exercises. So certainly a lot for you to do in each of those. There are other languages down here as well, JavaScript. X86 assembly. Oh gosh, I took a class in assembly. It's interesting. Who was it? Somebody emailed me and they said talked about the importance of understanding one layer of abstraction below where you're working, and I think that's a really good idea. I think it's a good idea to understand some assembly. Oops, I thought I clicked on assembly. I could have done the wrong thing. Practice mode. I wonder if can I browse the. No, I can't browse the solutions until I submit the solution. I'm gonna have to do a lot of research to do that again. Simply. Let's see, I was gonna look for JavaScript though. Ruby, JavaScript. Practice mode. How many exercises? 107 exercises for JavaScript. So Python has the most so far. Okay, I think that's it for right now. Unless there are some questions or concerns or comments, I will do my best to try and address those. Otherwise, I'm going to, I think I've shown you the basics of how to tackle these problems on Exercism, how to get started. So any comments, questions, or suggestions, go ahead and put them in real quick now. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up here. Great. So I'm actually planning to continue to put some more content out on for summer camp over the next couple of weeks. And like I said, I'm be encouraging people to sign up as mentors as well. So there'll be plenty of people to help answer your questions through Exercism. I think this is a great platform to get some hands-on experience programming and get feedback. Oh, this is a great question. Mason, in the future, do you think there will be one language instead of this many? So the general rule of thumb is every time a new language is invented, it is invented to be the one language you need to learn. Like, oh, we'll just make one new language that meets all the requirements. The reality is pretty much anything you can do with any language, you can do with every language. But different languages have different strengths and weaknesses. And so a lot of it comes down to some languages are better suited to some use cases. JavaScript is kind of in a special situation because it is the one language that runs inside your web browser, although WebAssembly is a new standard that's changed that. And so now you can write code in other languages that can then compile into WebAssembly, the same way you would compile Delphi into machine code. You instead compile to WebAssembly, which is a kind of an intermediate language that can then compile to the native CPU on each platform that the browser is running on. But generally, like I said, each language has its own strengths and weaknesses. The libraries that come with the language also influences that, although there are ways, like I showed with the Python for Delphi, where you can share libraries between languages. In the future, I don't see there being one language to rule them all. I don't think it's going to happen. It would be great if there was, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's kind of like for a lot of people, it's a personal identity thing that they see themselves as using this language. This language is the best. And so even if there was a better language, which in my opinion, I don't think there is a best language or better language today. There are different languages that are better for different situations. There are some languages that are well suited for a large variety of situations. I think Delphi is a fantastic language. It's one of my favorites. If somebody else has a different favorite language, I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. But if they say there's a better language for accomplishing building Windows GUI applications, I will tell them they're wrong, because that is a proven fact that Delphi is the best one for that. But yeah, so there's not going to be one language to rule them all in the future. There continues to be other languages are more popular than others. So for example, Common Lisp is not very popular. It has some camps where it is very popular, some communities that use it a lot. But if you look through this list, there's a lot of languages here that you may have never heard of before, and they have varying degrees of popularity. So I remember Perl used to be huge, but Perl's kind of on its way out now. PHP continues to be a good popular language. Rust is kind of up and coming, pretty excited. People are excited about that. Objective-C is a really old language. It was kind of popular when it first came out, and then it died out. And then Apple, when they released iOS or iPhones, and said Objective-C is how you program on it, everybody's like, woohoo, we love Objective-C, and Objective-C shot back up again. And then over time, people were like, this is a painful language to use. And then Apple came out and said, okay, we'll make Swift here as the successor to Objective-C. And then Objective-C is kind of going back down again, and people are doing more Swift. Tickle's a pretty fun language. I've worked on that projects in that before. 119 exercises in that, so there's plenty of exercises for it. It's not hugely popular as far as I know, but it is an interesting language. So anyway, your choice of languages shouldn't necessarily be driven by popularity by any means, but it's something to be aware of, I suppose. Some people like to say that x86 or the assembly is the ultimate programming language, but the reality is, and I've seen time and time again that much more knowledgeable programmers than myself have shown that even if you consider yourself to be an assembly expert, it is really hard to write assembly that produces machine code that is more efficient than most high-level language compilers. Now, sometimes you need to optimize for different scenarios where you need to be very specific and very exact, and so you may need to write some parts in assembly, but generally speaking, you can be more productive for sure, and oftentimes produce more efficient code by using a high-level language that compiles down to machine code, bypassing assembly altogether. But it varies from scenario to scenario. Let's see. Yes, Richard's saying in his experience, Delphi is as close to being that one language as any. I agree. Alvin and Ian are both saying they like Lisp. Sure, I'm not trying to disparage Lisp. Lisp has got some great things going for it. I used to be in the camp that if it wasn't Delphi Object Pascal, what was the point? It was useless. I've since learned a lot of different programming languages, and I can see pros and cons of each. I see some things I like about some languages more than other languages. I keep coming back to Delphi. I think Delphi is a phenomenal language, especially for people learning to program. When you combine Object Pascal language with Delphi framework, Delphi lets you get a lot done really easily, but then also gives you the ability to dive in and write as much code as you want to. And that kind of is a sweet spot, I think, in for programmers learning to program. Also, it's easy to read because it is English language based instead of symbol based. And yeah, this is, of course, not getting into the esoteric programming languages, which are programming languages that aren't really designed to be useful, but instead just designed to be interesting. One of the more interesting ones, I think, is the Rockstar programming language. This was created by, so there was a big thing a while back where people would say, we're looking to hire a rockstar programmer, as a way of saying that we want this mythical 10x developer, this developer that is, or 100x developer, we want this developer that is way better than everybody else. If you're not a rock star, you need not apply. And so this one guy, I'm trying to remember his name, Dalen Beatty, he's got some really awesome talks online if you can find some of his talks that he's done. Might be, is this going to link to it? Oh, okay, so this is a different thing. Anyway, so he has some talks online. If you can find his talks, they're great. And he talks about the evolution of this, but essentially he was in a bar and it's like, oh, we should make a rockstar programming language. And so then anybody that wants to be a rockstar programmer come out and write a short program in Rockstar and become a rockstar programmer. And it started out as just kind of a joke, and people were like, oh, this is a great idea, and caught on, and so then it's flushed out into a full programming language. So this is a simple FizzBuzz. FizzBuzz is a simple programming test. It used to be a game that you play with kids. The idea is that you count 1, 2, 3. 3 is divisible by, or any number divisible by 3 becomes fizz. So you'd say 1, 2, fizz. 4, 5, any number divisible by 5, you say buzz. So it'd be 1, 2, fizz, 4, buzz, 6, 7, 8, 9 is divisible by 3, so it would be fizz. Oh, 6 is also divisible by 3, and then 15 divisible by both 3 and 5 is FizzBuzz. So this is a common programming or exercise given to developers during interviews just to see that they can actually write code, because oftentimes people apply for jobs and can't write code. And it's, again, it sounds simple, and it is pretty simple. It's easy to explain, but it does require a little bit of thinking things through to write the code for that. So this is FizzBuzz in Rockstar. It's not an efficient programming language, but when you look at the code, it looks kind of like a rock ballad. So this is an example of esoteric programming language. There are lots of esoteric programming languages. Should I worry about difficulty when trying to learn new languages? Like, there are ones that are easier than others, and I should do an easy or hard, or just choose one and go with it. So honestly, I will give you my straight up recommendations for programming languages, for learning a program. I think honestly, Delphi and Python are honestly two of the best programming languages to learn. JavaScript, because it has that unique situation of being able to be run everywhere, is pretty good as well. JavaScript is kind of weird in the way it works, though, and can be kind of painful sometimes in learning to program on, but it does have the advantage of being everywhere. So those would be my 3 recommendations of languages to learn on, leaning more towards Python and Delphi. And if I didn't work for Embarcadero, or Embarcadero didn't have PyScripter, I would still recommend Python and Delphi. Those would be the 2 I'd still recommend. JavaScript, like I said, because it has this ubiquity to it, and then C# and Java are other 2, because they're super popular languages for those. Then they're not that hard to learn. C is another pretty good one because it's kind of this low-level ubiquitous language as well. So those would be kind of ranked. We'll say Java and Delphi, or I'm sorry, Python and Delphi are kind of the first choice, working your way down from there. So that'd be my recommendations. I think there are, so as far as language difficulty, it can be an influencer in learning, because you don't want to have something that's going to frustrate you. You want to have something where you can do things. When you're learning the program, you're going to want to, learning to understand the program is important. The programming language is important, but also there's going to be times when you want to do something. You're like, oh, I want to make a program that does blah, 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 right? And if you're learning a language, if you're learning a language that doesn't give you the ability to get there easily, then that's going to be frustrating for you. So having a language that's not too complicated, but that gives you the ability to get a lot done, like Delphi, is great. Delphi has a huge advantage in building GUI applications, which is, I think, very rewarding for new students to be able to, say, design their application, put some buttons down, add the code behind those buttons, and such, and get something that's useful, deploy it to a mobile phone. That's pretty awesome. If you're learning to program and you can be out with your friends talking to them, they're like, oh, really? What have you done? You're like, well, look, I pull out this program right here. Look, I wrote this. That's pretty cool. And so that's a huge advantage to Delphi. That's JavaScript has the same thing, except you can put it on the web easily. So Python doesn't have that same ability to publish the same way, but it's a great, powerful language for big data, machine learning, and stuff like that. So that's kind of where that's at. Language libraries and depth of those resources also key to a more versatile language. Yes, it is. And again, that's, I think, some of the power to those languages. Delphi, tons of languages and resources. Python, same. JavaScript as well. PHP is another one that has a lot of great languages, great for doing server-side stuff on the web. Java and C# are kind of interchangeably. I mean, essentially, C# is Microsoft's version of Java. Java was really dominating the industry, and Microsoft tried making J#, which was their own version of Java, literally, and got in trouble. So they said, okay, and they made C#, which is just like Java, except not. And or no, J++, that's what they made, J++. And yeah, so C# is very similar to Java. There's a lot of interchangeability in there. And it's, most people come down in one or the other because of almost like a religious, which camp they're in. So all of those have a lot of libraries available to them, where if you look at some of the other, like esoteric languages like Rockstar, hardly any languages available for it or libraries available for it. But then you look at a lot of these other ones. So I don't want to get into dissecting languages. So actually, one thing I will point out is that you do see new languages coming out that are academically interesting and may do some new interesting things. And there's a lot of excitement around those, but frequently they lack the maturity in the libraries and the resources that make it easy to use. And so that makes it kind of a hard choice to pick, especially for when you're learning to program, because you might be like, oh, okay, I've kind of learned some programming. I want to make a mobile app. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, you can't do a mobile app with, I don't know. I hate to pick one of these languages wrong. We'll say Go. You're like, oh, Go's great. I'm learning Go. And you're like, I want to make a mobile app with Go. No, you can't do that, or you can't do that easily, right? And so that can be frustrating. So that can be something to think about as well. Seems like Delphi is a Pascal framework, like Racket is a scheme framework, like libraries and frameworks to a general language. So Delphi is a little odd in that regard. Delphi is a dialect of Object Pascal. So it is the evolution of Object Pascal, which is the evolution of Pascal, in that there is Object Pascal that you would use in other Object Pascal implementations like Lazarus, Smart Mobile Studio, Free Pascal, Oxygen are slightly different. They're all, a lot of those are actually clones of Delphi, offshoots of Delphi, but they've added their own features as well. So yeah, so Delphi is its own dialect, its own evolution of Object Pascal, but Delphi is also sometimes used to refer to the IDE, although I think technically we say the IDE is Rad Studio, and then Delphi is a collection of libraries that come with it. Now, technically, the libraries anymore are kind of part of the language. So if you look at Python and C++, they have a standard library. Java has a standard library. So Java programming language and the Java runtime environment are intermixed. And so you kind of have that library, those standard libraries as kind of part of that. So is Delphi a language, an IDE, or a framework? Yes, it's all of those. You can build phone apps in C++, Embarcadero C++, just like you can with Delphi, correct? Yes, although I think there are some platforms, so there are some platforms that aren't supported the same in C++ Builder as they are in Delphi. And I have a hard time remembering what is released and what isn't released, unfortunately, so I'm going to go to the website and look real quick. And if you go to product edition, sometimes there's a feature matrix that lists out. Yes, Linux is not currently available for C++. Okay, so Community Edition does support, or C++ Builder supports, okay, C++ Builder has 32-bit Android support, whereas Delphi has 64-bit Android support. So Delphi is better suited for mobile development than C++ Builder currently, but you can target 32-bit apps on Android and 64-bit on iOS with both. So yes, Anders Hejlsberg created Delphi and later C#. So Anders Hejlsberg wrote the original Turbo Pascal, which was the kind of huge evolution in the Pascal programming language. Nicholsworth created Pascal programming language as educational. Anders Hejlsberg said, let's make Turbo Pascal, actually called it Blue Label Pascal, to be a useful implementation of Pascal for productive purposes. Was huge. Borland bought it from him and hired him. Turbo Pascal was incredibly influential for a long time, and then Anders Hejlsberg worked to create Delphi, which was the evolution of Turbo Pascal. Actually, there was Object Pascal and a couple other smaller variations in there that were part of the evolutionary journey. And then Microsoft hired him. He came to work for them and made C# and TypeScript, and was involved in a couple other languages with them as well. So there's some similarities between them because of that. I wonder if there will be a COBOL to Delphi converter. There probably is someplace. There are some things. So there are technologies that let you convert one language to another, but if those languages don't have the same libraries accessible to them, then that conversion isn't very useful, if that makes sense. So that's kind of one of the things is you have to consider the libraries in addition to the language, and the libraries very much are attached to different languages. Yes, JavaScript is now called ECMA script, which is the standardization organization for it. Although there's a lot of people that argue about what to refer to things as. Oh gosh, what's the guy's name? The guy that started the GNU Foundation, that originally that Linux is part of, wants Linux to be called GNU Linux because it is both the GNU project and the Linux kernel, but that never caught on. But technically, he's correct. So I don't know. I'm not going to get into the battles of what to call things. Richard Stallman, yes, that's the guy's name. I haven't heard anything about him in a long time. I'm assuming he's still around. I think he's got some good ideas and he's done a lot of great work in the industry. So I'm not trying to disparage him at all. Nicholas says, currently trying Delphi 10.4 CE to develop an Android application, string errors recording SDK indicate API changes. So I'm not sure what the errors you might be having are, but I can show you some basics of troubleshooting that. So we go to tools, options, deployment, SDK manager. You should have these here. You can come and look and make sure that they're all, if you have a little triangle next to one of these, you possibly didn't install them when you installed it. And so the easiest way to fix that would be to come in here and go tools, manage platforms. And oh, that's right, it doesn't work on here. Let me switch to the computer. This is, like I said, running Windows 11 beta on ARM processor, and so there's a few things that don't quite work right. But let's switch over here to this one. Tools, manage platforms, and hopefully this one doesn't give me an error too, because then I'll feel really silly. It didn't. So if you come in here to manage platforms, now I'm running Rad Studio Enterprise, so I have both Delphi and C++ here. You won't have both Delphi and C++. If you're running Community Edition, you'll have one or the other. Come to the additional tab though, and this should be mostly the same, I believe. And you want to make sure you have adopt OpenJDK and Android SDK NDK installed. And if you do have those installed, then that should work correctly. If you're trying to open like a project that's using a specific version of the SDK or NDK or something like that, you could have some issues, but I would say start with making a new project and making sure that it is working correctly. So yeah, I just fresh installed this one this morning, and it has those Android SDK and NDK 64-bit and 32-bit all set up correctly. Oh, there is a warning here on this one. So that means that file's missing. So if that's what you're getting at, I can show you how to fix that one. I copy the path to the main Android SDK folder here. So that's this path here, SDK base path. And I will run the SDK manager program. It did run. Okay, good. If you don't have your Java set up right, then you could have issues there. Again, your probably best bet is to uninstall those and reinstall them from the manager. And you can come in here and see if, let's see. This is 29. Oops. Okay, so Android 10. Okay, right here. See that this might be what you're having. So right now it's saying Android 10 is not installed. You only need. You don't need this, or that, or that. All you need is. Oh wait. Yeah, SDK platform is all you need to install. So it says it's installing 7 packages. Oh, I don't need that one. That's the preview one. I just need 2 packages. Oh, it's going to install the Google USB driver. Okay, sure. So I hit install, accept license. Now, this is the same SDK that is used by anything else that's developing for Android. So now, still says it's not working. I wonder if I should open the window again. Let me see if that path exists. It exists. Okay. Tools, options. It might just have not refreshed until you reopen it. Yep, that's gone. So now it should work. So that may be what the error was, is you're missing that one thing, and I just showed you how to get that back. Is there a way to reset Community Edition when exceeding 3 activations, since I moved to another VM and support doesn't allow me to do so? I don't. I'm not sure the way to do that. Honestly, if you might be able to talk to sales. So if you're not on so support is only available to people on update subscription, which is a premium service from us. But if you talk to sales, they might be able to help you with that, but I can't guarantee it. Otherwise, yeah, I mean, I guess if you have other email addresses, that might work. Mike says I don't like the Java in the JavaScript name. It has nothing to do with Java. That's true. They named it JavaScript because they wanted to glom onto the popularity of Java. I'm not sure, Nicholas. So I would suggest if you want some help with that, you might jump out. I would say email me, but unfortunately my email is really piled up this week, and I don't know if I'll get back to you on time or not. If you go out to one of these communities here, you probably can get some help. They're fantastic people out there helping on this. Just be respectful of people you're asking questions of, and remember they're volunteering to answer your questions. So, okay, so the certification we're going to do is I'm working with Exercism to say people that go out there and complete a certain number of exercises. I haven't figured out exactly what that is yet. We will give you an ability to get a certification saying that you have done some, attended the course and done some things. So we're working on that still, but that is the plan, is that going out there and doing some courses on exercism, doing some exercises there will give you that thing. I don't think watching a webinar is really something that should give you a certification, because we don't really know if you're paying attention or not. So I want the certification to actually mean something, and so that's why I've added the exercism part there. So go out there, complete some sessions, and I'll follow up with details with you as far as how to get your certification. So David's saying, from what I see nowadays, companies need to have a presence on all platforms. Embarcadero tools are the best in the market. This should be reported to their Embarcadero marketing department. Yeah, well, I agree. They're great because they are available or able to deploy to all platforms. Great. All right, so let's go ahead and, wow, we've gone almost a whole nother hour with just doing questions, which is great. I love answering questions like this. And fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for coming, being part of this. Good luck in your programming. Take advantage of, I'll put this link in here. these communities here is a great place to go if you're not sure where to go to find a community to answer questions, because joining a community is a really important part of learning to program, because you're going to have questions. You're going to need feedback. You're going to need suggestions. And that's a great place to go for that. Otherwise, hopefully see you on Exercism or otherwise online. Thanks. Take care, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your summer. Bye.